Rise and shine. This is Coach B, also known as Brother I Mean. I currently work as a certified peer recovery coach. I also have certifications as a certified supervisor of peer recovery, as well as I completed a counseling apprenticeship that is recognized through the Department of Labor. I am bringing awareness to post-incarceration syndrome. Post-incarceration syndrome has not yet been an official diagnosis according to the DSM, but it's a real thing. And I know from experience. I currently serve 25 consecutive years in prisons. 25 of those years, well, 20 of those years was in maximum security. 5 out of those years was in somewhat of a segregation unit. And I feel some of the effects of incarceration after I've been released. I've been out for probably a little over 2 years, and some of the roadblocks that I had to deal with was, when I first got out, dealing with paranoia, trying to adjust mentally, trying to adjust spiritually, emotionally, going into relationships, trying to learn how to feel again, because one of the things that happens in incarceration, especially long-term incarceration, is there's a period where you have to cut off your emotions in order to not stress yourself out to the point, because I've sank into depressions while incarceration, watching my children grow up without me, not being able to protect my mother, not being able to protect my children's mother, and just not being there for my family, and not being able to get that hug that I needed from my mama when I needed it. Certain things like my grandmother died while I was incarcerated, and I wasn't able to attend the funeral, and she was like a second mother to me. And dealing with all these things, and while having to have the mask on, having to have your guard up at all times, dealing with the aggression of staff, dealing with the aggression of your peers, dealing with just constantly living with your defense mechanisms and your coping mechanisms. But the awareness is being brought just for not only the people who have served the lengthy amount of time, but to the family members, to the spouses, to the significant others that sometimes may not know what's going on. With me, like personally, throughout my education, I had a lot of plans as to what I wanted to do when I got out. I wanted to start a business. I wanted to start a nonprofit organization. I wanted to do so many things, and I did. I started the business, and I do have a nonprofit organization called Peace and Blessings Incorporated. But on top of that, I got out, and I was so optimistic about the world. But the people I came into contact with, they were somewhat pessimistic about the world. It was a culture shock, because I'm used to having a certain type of support system. I'm used to being able to create with the help of people that have minds for the same cause, efforts for the same goals. But with my dreams and aspirations, one of the biggest things that I learned, and it was by one of my mentors and someone who taught me a lot, and his name was Adam Rothrock. He was a director at the RWI program, which is Recovery While Incarcerated, in Plainfield Correctional Facility. But the thing that he taught me was, when I asked, what is the best advice you can give me about getting released? And he said, be prepared to be told no. I didn't know. There was no way that I could like fully grasp what was being said, because a lot of the doors that I tried to knock on and tried to open, they were locked based on the fact that I was a convicted felon. Getting housing, one of the things they ask is, are you a convicted felon? And you don't qualify for a lot of housing, so sometimes you have to accept housing in areas that aren't conducive to your re-entry back into society. And I was blessed to have found good housing, but it was based on the support system that I had built, through the recovery community, actually. And even employment, even though you have those certifications, those college degrees, these things that sometimes may not transfer into the workforce, you're still the guy that, and a lot of times you can't even pass the the background check, even though you're qualified for the position. I've even seen what, as a peer recovery coach, sometimes my job is to help assist with guys getting employment. I've even seen to where they couldn't get the raise. They were able to work at the company, but when it came to going into a management position, due to the fact that they were a convicted felon, they weren't able to be managers. On top of that, the expectations, and I would suggest to everybody that's getting out from doing a long period of time, slow motion is better than no motion. Don't move too fast. It's okay. Don't try to catch up. The people that have cars, that have housing, that have a lot of the things that they have, it took time for them to be able to accumulate these things. A lot of times we'll get out and we'll want what everybody else has out the gate. So I just encourage everybody to be patient. Slow motion is better than no motion. Keep studying yourself. I'm in the process of doing holistic healing for myself. My body was affected by eating processed meats for such a long time, eating high sodium and high sugar diet for such a long time. So when I got out, I started fasting. I started doing cleanses. I started doing parasite cleanses. I started, trying to reset my body and prepare it for, healthy things. I have a plant-based diet. I don't eat meat. I don't eat a lot of the sugars and different things that, come to find out, contributed to a lot of the discomforts that I have even still to this day. I work out regularly. I run a mile every day. Every morning I do the sauna to kind of release some of the toxins that's inside of my body. But it's a constant thing, and the holistic approach from my perspective is it starts with mentally. I had to detox mentally. I'm used to a whole lot of noise. It's always somebody yelling. It's always something going on. So to come into a quiet space was very important to me. And being mindful that I don't watch violent movies very often. Every now and then I watch a movie. I love movies, but I don't listen to violent music. I try to avoid negative people, like people that's always complaining, people that's always pointing out the wrong that's going on. I try to avoid those people. I try to surround myself with people that are speaking life. And that's where the detox began for me. Because I could try to detox my body, but if my mind isn't clear, it's not going to be effective. And after I detox my mind, after I've removed a lot of these negative influences into my living area, even my office area, now I can start adding good things. Now I do mindfulness meditations. Now I offer my prayers throughout the day. I do gratitude exercises in the morning. I start my day off right, so that my day can become righteous. It's the same way with my physical health. I started with fasting. That's something I was always familiar with, but I did a long fast. I did a juice cleanse. I tried different remedies that I had seen on different social media sites, and I had to perfect the one that's good for me. I can't do what everybody else does. My metabolism is very high, so I can't really do the citric acids that are in like oranges and different stuff like that. So my juicing is specific to my body. And once I started to remove a lot of the toxins and do these cleanses and fasts, now when I rebuild it, I have to be mindful that after I cleanse my body, I can't just go back to the things that cause me to have these discomforts. So I study my body. There's certain vegetables that I eat, certain fruits that I eat, certain medicines that I take. And when I say medicines, I'm talking about, things like sea moss, things like dandelion root, things like, whole cloves and cinnamon teas, certain things that work for my body. Because in order for me to truly be healed, holistic, the root word is whole. Just like with health, the real root word for health is heal, which translates to whole. So to become whole again, So I had to remove these layers, and then the spiritual layers, doing breath work, doing, when I offer my prayers, really standing still, kneeling, bowing, prostrating, and, doing these things and clearing my mind so that I can receive all the good things. But I just encourage everybody to be mindful, to keep rising, keep shining, keep grinding, keep doing these self-evaluations, and understand that it's more to life than toxic behavior. There's more to life than violence. There's more to life than negativity. So find your own space. I had the misconception that I thought other people could bring peace into my life. But that's one of the biggest lessons I had to learn. I have to be peaceful to attract peace into my life. I can't wait for somebody to come and be peaceful. I have to create peace. Just like in according to the principles that I was educated, that I implement into my daily life: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I have to have love. I can't give away something that I don't have. So I have to be love. I have to be truth. I have to be peace. I have to be free. And I have to demonstrate justice in order to attract that to my life. So that's what my journey is, my holistic journey, my journey dealing with post-incarceration syndrome, my journey dealing with, any of the roadblocks that I receive. And when I post something or when I give advice, I'm not going to give advice based on saying that I'm a doctor or a prescription. I'm going to give advice based on sharing with you the things that I've tried and what works for me, and encourage you to study yourself, study your body, study what you're thinking, study your thoughts, learn how to identify your emotions, learn how to identify your feelings, so that you can properly present yourself back to the world and be a blessing. The concept behind Peace and Blessings Incorporated is the only way that you will truly attain peace is if you realize that you are the blessing. So go out there and be a blessing, y'all. Keep rising, keep shining, keep grinding. Peace and blessings.